Thomas Conwell, welcome to Nature of Reality Radio in what is going to be the second interview that I am doing on this show, in which I will be asking my listeners to pay me on Patreon if they wish to listen to this right after I do it. Like I told my listeners on the shows before the holidays that I would be giving y'all a Christmas gift to listen to my shows live on YouTube for a little while, but after Christmas, it's going to be pay me on Patreon to listen to the interview right away. Otherwise, you will have to wait 2 to 3 weeks before I upload the interview to YouTube and cost.tv. With that being said, though, for those that are patient and want to wait, I would prefer that you actually listen to my interviews on cost.tv instead of YouTube, because cost.tv allows you to monetize using blockchain based on how many people are watching your videos. So just for the sake of giving me YouTube view credit, listen to the interviews on YouTube for 15 seconds and then click on the link in the video description to cost.tv so you can watch the interview in its entirety there. There's always going to be at least 2 to 3 hour delay between uploading to YouTube and uploading to cost.tv, because cost.tv requires you to upload it 2 hours after you finish uploading all the details. So for those that just tune into YouTube before I put the cost.tv description, just listen to it on YouTube. But otherwise, please listen to cost.tv to help me monetize using the blockchain. It's not much money, but it is better than nothing. So now that I've gotten that out of the way, I'd like to give you, Tom Conwell, the chance to explain your life story. I heard about you from, I've heard you in the past, your name has come up. Maybe I actually saw you at a MUFON conference that I was at. I've been to a lot of UFO and ET conferences. Maybe I did come across you, but it was the interview that you did on a recent radio program, either The Leak Project or Forbidden Knowledge News. Sorry for not remembering. I subscribe to a lot of channels, and I remember a lot, but not always the specifics of where I got heard about my listeners. And it's kind of should be ashamed of myself. I don't remember where I heard the people I want to get on my show, but hey, there's a lot of things I need to remember, so sue me. And now, now's your chance to have the glory on my show. Why don't you tell us who you are, what you experience that causes you to do the research that you do specifically? Please be the best primary source that you can be. I will put myself on mute, and I don't have Alex Jones-itis. I do not interrupt my guests, so you've got the floor. Knock yourself out.
Thank you, Andrew. First of all, my name is I write. I'm an author. My name is Thomas W. Conwell. That's how you find me in Amazon. But I go by Tom, and I've been an electronic technician with both the US Navy and Honeywell for, I guess, a total of about 42, 43 years. During my time with the military, I was in a field called metrology. Now, metrology is the science of measurement. My job was to take standards that got sent into our lab and to compare them with higher quality standards. So that's one thing that everybody knows is done, but they never heard the word metrology. Well, that's what it means. From there, I went into Honeywell. It's after a 6-year stint in the Navy. I went into Honeywell, and I worked in the Honeywell metrology section for about 7 years. During that time, I worked on the Honeywell equipment, which varied anywhere from very fast tape recorders all the way to oscillographs. And what that would do is that would put a signal on a piece of paper, not like a pen. It would do it with light, and it was put on photographic paper. And as the paper would come out, it could come out very, very fast. But as this paper came out, you held it up to the light, and it would develop the picture. Very interesting technology. From there, I was transferred within Honeywell to Albany, New York, and I got an opportunity to work with several other divisions in Honeywell. One of those was a building controls division. which I actually transferred to several years out. That's pretty much because the friends that I made when I moved up to Honeywell, to Albany, were also golfing partners. So I went with them, and I got an opportunity to work in Honeywell temperature controls, temperature control systems for large buildings, fire alarm, and security. And shortly after that, I also got into the software that is being utilized in those things. Let's see, what else? So I'm fire alarm level 2 certified, so I can assist with the fire alarm installation and checkout. Let's see, I work in temperature control, like I said, and this temperature control, I was able to utilize databases directly to troubleshoot. That's what gave me all of my background information on databases, which I ultimately used after I retired. But to finish up with Honeywell, I utilized my background in college in physics and electronics and in mathematics, and I utilized that within Honeywell. And people were always coming to me to ask me various questions about physical principles. And then after I retired with Honeywell, I decided to keep myself busy, so I joined a paranormal team. That's a paranormal investigations, ghost hunting. Okay, you see this stuff on TV all the time, and I thought that I could lend a lot to that field because of a background in electronics, a background in electrical equipments, and I had an awful lot of fun passing out knowledge and whatever else to people who were in the ghost hunting field. But I also got an opportunity to get into UFO studies. Now, when I got into the UFO studies, I was able to utilize the database structuring that I had discovered when I was working with Honeywell. And I utilized the databases, especially from the National UFO Reporting Center, which has about, right now they probably have close to 90,000 UFO sightings in it. And I was able to manipulate those databases and extract information, which helped in putting together my first 3 books. My first 3 books, they are here, volume 1, 2, and 3. And I look at the East Coast, Central US, and the West Coast. And I look at the kinds of sightings that are being seen, where they're seen. And in order to back that up, I took these sightings and put them on a map, on a visual map with pins. And from there, I was able to see a whole bunch of different collections of UFO sightings that I normally wouldn't have seen. So that made it very helpful. I also wrote a bunch of blogs, and I think there were about 36 in all. And they weren't like really short blogs. I couldn't write a short blog because what I was looking at was the kind of physics problems that we as Earthlings would have to solve in order for us to get to their planet and not the other way around. So each little aspect that I looked at of what kind of problem we would have to solve to get to their stuff, it created from a 2 to a 4-page blog, and I tried to explain the physics as best I could, and I put that eventually into a book, and that book is entitled Going Interstellar. That was my 4th book. Then most recently, my 5th book, well, I wanted to study the earthquake occurrences throughout the United States, and what I was hoping to do is to correlate where all the earthquakes were, along with my UFO map, and utilized both of these things to see if there were overlaps. In other words, were there a whole lot of UFO sightings in and around major earthquakes? I was convinced they were, and this latest book took me on a journey through doing that and creating maps around each of the earthquake sightings, and so that was a real struggle. That took me almost 2 years to write, and I ended up in a place that had absolutely nothing to do with earthquakes or UFOs. I never expected it, and this all was a result of the research that I did into the UFO sightings. It was very interesting. So that's me. Did you have any questions?
Well, yes. The idea that UFOs do not, there really is no correlation that one can find between UFOs appearing at earthquake sites or any other natural disaster, for lack of a better phrase. Well, is that really the case? I mean, it could obviously stand out that because something is going on at that particular location, be it an earthquake or volcanic eruption or whatever, that people's attention is going to be there. And so naturally, more people are going to spot a UFO that just so happens to be there, even if the UFO has no causal connection to the natural disaster in question. It's just that more people were drawn there because of the natural disaster, therefore they got to see the UFO. However, those in the more metaphysical community would assert that there's a lot more energies going on at the site of earthquakes and volcanic eruptions than just the lava coming out of the earth and the tectonic plates going through motions and such. There's more metaphysical explanations behind it, including the fact that the energies that mainstream science doesn't really acknowledge exist are causing the UFOs to be able to appear in that reality as a result of the energy increase caused by the natural disaster. You seem to be hinting that you can't really find any correlation, but for the metaphysical reason that I've tried to give, the natural disaster causes energies that mainstream science doesn't really acknowledge. Therefore, it stands to reason that the UFOs, which are of higher technology and would probably be privy, if you will, to harnessing and using these energies, are going to show up there. So how do you make sense of all this?
Oh, I'm no. That's why I started looking. I figured that this tremendous release of energy was going to attract something. And all that I had to work with was an existing database of where the UFOs were seen and reported, and where the earthquakes were reported. So I tried putting the two together, and I found sketchy amount of an increase in sightings in and around any earthquake event, but not enough for me to say, oh yeah, earthquakes definitely are attracting UFOs, even though I still think in the back of my mind that they are, because of this tremendous amount of energy being released, along with volcanoes. They have to be attracting energy. and the UFOs have got to be interested in it, but I couldn't prove it.
Thank you. And oh, I'm actually looking at your Facebook page now. It was the Forbidden Knowledge News that I saw you. You have that posted up here on a couple of timeline posts, and some other people have actually posted it as well to acknowledge you. And also, you got a fan club of sorts. um, now, you have been to MUFON conferences and presented there.
So, I have been to MUFON. No, I've not presented at a MUFON conference, but I have presented at a UFO conference
Okay.
where there was a MUFON representation.
Okay. Do you believe that MUFON is compromised, or are they genuine? And when I say compromised, there's the idea that a lot of that group has been infiltrated by NSA and CIA forces that want to keep the truth out of the public and don't want MUFON getting a little too close, and also maybe trying to suppress MUFON's consciousness, if you will, by making them only talk about things from a nuts and bolts standpoint rather than a more metaphysical, energetic standpoint. So, do you have any comments on that, or is that out of your area?
Okay, well, I've been asked some similar questions. Believe me, I don't know what MUFON is and whether they have been infiltrated. However, if I were trying to keep a secret, I would surely want to know what organizations were saying out loud and amongst each other. So, would I infiltrate? You bet I would. Would I try to alter what they're going to say? I don't know how successful I'd be, but I might give it a try. So I guess in bottom line, I really wouldn't be surprised if they were.
Neither would I. And let's switch gears for a moment. Could get away from UFOs for a moment and talk about planet Earth, Mother Earth. I prefer. Some people prefer to call it Mother Earth, to like it's our mother. It's defined feminine and all. But I point this out because you, on the picture you wanted me to use for the banner, that you are standing in front of 5 words on a blue screen, and those 5 words are "Take care of your planet." Exactly why is that there? I mean, have you seen, are you the kind of like environmentalist nut that sees like the slightest bit of litter and pollution on the earth and would freak out by it, so you want to make a statement about it like this? Or is there a different story behind why you would insist on this of all messages be the one that I use on the
Okay.
timeline thing? Yeah.
Okay. There's a vastly different a reason that I use that. When I became a ufologist, I just announced to people, my couple of friends on Facebook, and people came out of the woodwork. I mean, literally, within a year, I had probably up to 35 people come to me and say, I was abducted by aliens, and I would like to tell you my story. So I thought, well, okay, if you want to tell me your story, I'm fine with that. I'll be happy to listen. But let's discuss some things first. If I think that you have some particular issue or problem or anything like that, I'm going to stop the interview and recommend that you go see somebody. And everybody understood. Okay, fine. That's fine. So during this interviews of some 30 some people, and again, like I said, this was only the first year, I asked a bunch of canned questions, and one of them was, did you get a message from them to bring back to the earth after being taken? Because I was curious. I thought I was going to hear everything under the sun, believe me, everything under the sun. That's what I expected. I received one answer. from a third of the people that I asked. Only one answer, and that was the ET told them to take care of your planet. And that was in a talk that I did at the Phoenix MUFON. That was not a conference. That was I was invited to Phoenix just to give a talk to a bunch of people, and that was one of the slides. And they took a picture of me standing in front of that slide. So that's the background story. But as far as being an environmentalist, sure, I'm concerned about the Earth, and but I'm not so sure that we have to be panicking yet. But we should be paying attention.
Yeah, and I certainly do my part. I love to pick up litter often. Even little cigarette butts, every little bit helps when it comes to cleaning up for the earth and also resolving karma. That's another reason I see the good in picking up litter and taking care of the earth. Resolve your own
Yes.
karma. But yes, right. So you're agreeing with me on that. Yes, karma is real. No question about it. So other than that, about taking care of the planet, there's ways that we don't take care of the planet, and then there's ways that we don't think we're harming it, but we are. And I mean, I've come to the obvious conclusion that the idea that global warming from a man-made standpoint is a complete and total hoax. That's just a lie that has been made up to get us to give up our liberties in the name of saving the earth. Global warming and global cooling is perfectly natural with the cycles of the sun and the movement of the earth throughout the solar system. Any cosmic energies that it's going through at any given time also play a role in that, in addition to the sun and the moon as well. But the thing about some things about taking care of the planet, drilling for oil is definitely bad. The idea, though, that running out of oil is possible, no, it doesn't work like that. I've heard some people explain that oil is basically what blood is to humans. You know, when you bleed, the blood comes out, but your body can replace it. The Earth actually has the ability to replace drained oil that we use. But still, the idea of taking the blood out of something is certainly never good. So you would have to think we're harming the earth there. And then there's like the issue of mining for like gold and silver. Does the earth really care if we open a crack in it just to take out some metals that we consider precious? Some would say yes. Some people say no. It's not. Mother Earth it's barely just a little prick of a needle, and that's it. And then the pain goes away. So, what are some things that we do to the Earth that you think are harmful that the ETs would say you got to stop this, and some other things that we are doing that some nuts would think, environmentalist nuts would think you're harming the Earth, but it's really not that much of a big deal.
Okay. As far as hurting the earth, I think it's generalized pollution. It's what we're pumping into the air. One of the things that we're putting into the air in almost extraordinary quantities is carbon dioxide. Now, carbon dioxide is a compound that exists. It's been on the earth for forever. There's been large quantities of it up in the atmosphere in the ancient past, large quantities, and these large quantities where the CO2, where methane was up in the earth, it created a warm climate, and it also forced the earth to try to get rid of that before it returned to normal. And again, that's one of the natural things that occurs. In all of the research that they've done in terms of taking ice tubes out of the colder environments, they were able to look way back, and determined that the that once the Earth warmed up, whatever the cause happened to be, then carbon dioxide and methane were released from the planet, went up into the atmosphere, and created a warm planet for an abnormally long time afterward. The only thing different with this scenario that we're doing now is from burning fossil fuels, especially coal, and pumping all that crap into the air, we are increasing the carbon dioxide in the upper environments, creating a warmer environment. That is melting ice, which is allowing the release of methane. And we're doing that prior to the Earth getting warm. In other words, this is actually making the Earth get warm. Whereas years past, it would get warm because of natural events. And once it got warm because of natural events, it would stay warm for a long time. Now, we're making it warm. And what's going to happen after the Earth gets extremely warm and the CO2 out of the planet and the methane out of the planet is going to get extremely thick. And that's going to make the Earth even warmer. That's basically the only difference. We're doing this prior to the actual warming event versus after the actual warming event. Now, I don't know what that's going to do, whether that's going to create some runaway effect or it's just going to make the Earth a little bit warmer. I honestly don't know. But that is one thing that we have been doing and have continued to do because of industry, because of coal burning, because we're burning gasoline. They all add to it, and it's all been because of this.
Yes, and I guess that will lead into the technology that you're referencing will lead into what I want to talk about next. Although, I mean, hey, I've even heard a lot of people that fight for truth that actually do seem to believe in man-made global warming for whatever the reason. If you want to believe it, you're entitled to believe it. I personally think it's just a hoax to make us give up our rights. But there's I mean, every side has an argument. I mean, my personal thing about the dead giveaway that it must not be for real is the fact that polar bears seem to be going southbound more so than they've ever been in towns in the in cities near the Arctic Circle, or people are fearing for their life because they could have a polar bear jump out of them at every moment. They've never been as far south as they are now. So, I mean, if the Earth was getting warmer, they'd certainly be going more to the north areas to get more in the cold. But if it's getting colder, then they can naturally migrate southbound a little bit more. But hey, what do I know? I don't even live there, so I can't even be a primary source there. But another thing that I can't be a primary source, but a lot of people I'm sure on Earth can, but they're sworn to secrecy about it, is the technology that UFOs go by and the ETs that control them go by that, well, would make us really happy, because if it's put to good use, we could all quit our goddamn 9-to-5 jobs and use that technology to provide for everybody and get the oil tycoons out of business and maybe even get rid of money, and everybody would be able to get everything they needed because all the ET and UFO technology replaced all the robber baron technology. Now, wouldn't that be great? Well, that seems to be years down the line, but it could be around sooner than later, considering that, Donald Trump, his uncle, was one of the people who took Nikola Tesla's work after Nikola Tesla passed away in that hotel in New York. And I cannot help but wonder if maybe right after Joe Biden gets sworn into office, if Donald Trump releases that technology and tells the world, okay, now do you see why not letting me serve a second term is a stupid idea, because I want to give this technology to the world and now I can't because you're not letting me be president again. That would be something, wouldn't it? But well, the idea of UFO technology being able to provide for everyone, to change the world and get rid of all this terrible pollution-causing technology that you talked about, when is that going to happen? What has to happen for it to happen? Any comments?
Oh boy, a lot has to happen. First of all, I don't believe that we are going to be privy to any of the alien technology anytime soon. I don't think that the government wants to release anything. They're after. They are utilizing the technology that we have in place right now to make their money to fund their projects. So the last thing in the world they want to do is give away free energy. Um, that's just not going to happen. Um, I am wondering if somewhere down the road somebody's going to make an accidental discovery that's going to bring us a little bit closer to their alien technology, and it's either going to be welcomed or quashed. I really don't know what's going to happen. Um, I'm hoping that they have a full-blown disclosure, but I'm not holding my breath. I don't think that they want that information out. If you want to know my answer, they don't want the information out.
Okay, I could agree with that, but there was a little something that slipped through the mainstream media into the mainstream media for the public to read not that long ago. Haim Erkin, or whatever his name may have been,
Oh
from
yeah,
Egypt, Israel, that's saying the I think it first appeared in the Jerusalem Post, saying the U.S. government knows about extraterrestrials. Donald Trump wanted to tell the world, but he was kept from doing it because the excuse people aren't ready to hear the truth because they can't handle the truth. So, a couple things to talk about there. First of all, one would see this as okay, this is a gift from God. The disclosure is official now because the mainstream media and someone in government or was in government has acknowledged it. And then there's those that will just downplay this or be apathetic about it and say, just we got up in the morning. It's the same world as it was before the guy made that announcement. It's not like his announcement is going to cause it to start raining frogs or anything like that. It's the same old world out there, even with this acknowledgement. Well, is that a bad thing? I mean, should we be a little pissed off at the apathy that people are showing towards this and trying to downplay it as a distraction or something to not really be concerned about? And another thing that I think people need to be concerned about, the fact that people, if you can't handle the truth, then well, at what point does it become okay for us to mock and ridicule you and call you pathetic? Because someone like I, who's been doing the show and talking about crazy things that would get me thrown in an insane asylum back in the Middle Ages, I well, it boggles my mind that people just don't want to know the truth, and that the idea that there would be the shock of being lied to for so long would cause people to want to stop living their lives. I says some Akashic Records reader actually said that that did happen in an alternate timeline on the year 2004, when all the truths were revealed and people stopped living their lives because they didn't see the point in living because they've been lied to for so long. Is that the way we really are as a species? And if we are, what can we do to give ourselves a kick in the pants to be able to not be apathetic about announcements like this and actually realize the implications? Why don't we have people with torches and pitchforks going to the White House saying, okay, Donald Trump, what do you know about aliens? The Israeli guy said you know. You better tell us because we want to know. Why are people doing that?
wow. Well, that's a learned behavior. Back in the 40s, starting in the 40s, when everything UFO was decried as just uh, you just saw maybe he just had a glimpse from the sun, or it's a planet Venus, or it was talked down heavily by the government right up to 1969, and then for whatever reason they just stopped Project Blue Book and just never talked about it. All of that learned behavior, they just carried it right through. They didn't have to lift a finger. They don't have to say a word. All that learned behavior, we just carried it up, right through ourselves. Probably 50, 60% of the people in the world think that now, think that it's nonsense. Although I think the percentages there are starting to slide downward. But there's enough people that nobody has to lift a finger. The people will do it themselves. Make it all go away. It's not important. Let's not talk about it. Or you look at for 50 years, the UFO sighting that was reported on the national news. Doesn't matter. Just pick one. It was always relegated to the very last minute of the national news, and everybody has a good laugh over it. This was all planned, and we're just carrying it through. And it's going to take a whole changeover of people on the planet in order to unlearn this. We're going to need a new generation of people coming up who are thinking, well, why don't we talk about UFOs? I don't understand. And then we're open enough to it. But right now, too many people are willing to carry on what the government told them blindly, and that's the reason for that, at least in my opinion.
And you are certainly entitled to your opinion. And well, the idea that these UFO craft pose any sort of a danger to us, you haven't heard anything about staged alien invasion. I just can't resist bringing that up because there are those that are saying there's no way they're going to pull that off at this point. Can't do it. But yet it seems to be on the cards just because Werner von Braun said that was going to be the last thing they use to scare humanity. So, any comments? Staged alien invasion.
Okay, I don't buy it. And the reason I don't buy it is because people are a lot smarter than that. If they stage an alien invasion, why wouldn't people think, well, what was wrong with them invading us when we were flying around with airplanes that had propellers on them? Or even before World War II, why didn't they invade us then? Because we hadn't invented the nuclear bomb and can't get in a lucky shot. None of it makes sense to me. I think it's all bogus. Just my opinion.
Okay, fair enough. Also, the types of UFO craft that you think you are concerned about as a person, but also maybe you would maybe perhaps give some advice to which craft are, worth being concerned about. Like Stan Freeman, he was always big with flying saucers. May his soul rest in peace. He was a great guest on my show when I had him way back in the day. Classic interview. But
I bet.
Yeah, flying saucers are not the only types of UFOs. There are so many other types that could be mistaken for well, just watch Ancient Aliens and see the kinds of things that are postulated and hypothesized regarding what could these depictions and artwork of the past be representations of some UFO that they had actually seen with their own eyes in the sky way back then. So, are you of the flying saucer craze, or are you more like concerned with other types of UFOs, and you think people should be concerned about certain types as more of a national security issue than other types?
No, I don't think that any particular type is any worse than any other type, although the different types of craft are most likely used by different beings, and everybody has their own agenda up there. There's probably multiple civilizations visiting us now, and each one of them have their own thing and their own agenda. But as far as the kind of craft that concern me, over the years, the flying saucer or the cylindrical craft have been associated with abductions, more often than any other craft. Um, Most recently, you hear about an occasional abduction with a triangular craft. I don't know if that's alien triangular or US triangular. I don't even know anymore. And but there are about 50 different kinds of things seen in the sky, and these things all have different sources. In other words, they're seen in larger quantities in certain areas of the country, such as the fireballs are seen most often along the water, and the uh, um, the rectangular and a square craft are seen inland. The chevrons are seen everywhere. Um, these are almost like the triangular, well, actually more like a flying wing, um, a la the Phoenix Lights kind of sighting. And the teardrop craft are another interesting one that is part of one of the civilizations that I think is looking out for us. But there's a few that aren't necessarily. They're out for themselves, and I don't know what they are and can't exactly say, well, it was this craft flown by this race who, I, I don't have that information. Um, so I can't put my finger on that particular one. But yeah, there's a lot of different things that are seen in the sky that um, uh, have been worrisome, and a lot of these things um, are for all intents and purposes um, observation crafts. Things like spheres. Um, these are utilized, the small spheres especially. These are utilized most often um, to spy on us or to look at us, or whatever the deal happens to be. But I'm not of the mind that UFOs have come here to take over our planet or attack us. I'm not believing that at all.
Okay, but are you perhaps open to you said there's different AET species that have different agendas.
Sure.
Is one of those agendas that you're willing to perhaps believe in the evil reptilian agenda, which some people like George Tsoukalos of Ancient Aliens say he admitted anyway on the Reptilian Alien episode of that show, that he does not subscribe to the reptilian agenda, thinking that there are better explanations for why Earth is in the state that it is, other than because we are slaves to some reptilian interdimensional race that feeds off the energy that we emit when we're in a state of fear. And just to give credit where credit is due, David Icke did not come up with the idea of the reptilian alien. He got the idea from Jordan Maxwell after Maxwell brought Icke to America. But I'm digressing. The point is, reptilian aliens, is it worth believing or not believing? And maybe even all that stuff about how the Greys are their subordinates.
Oh, interesting. Now, I have not come across any information in my research about any particular race, one of them being the reptilians. I don't have information on that. Um, During my interviews with people who were abducted, no one mentioned a reptilian in any regard. They mentioned all kinds of different races of beings, but no one mentioned the reptilians. So I don't think that they're into taking us, and I don't think that they're into um, harming us. However, I'm not saying that they don't have an agenda. I just don't know what that agenda is.
Mm, fair enough there. Just want to point out for because you say I don't know what these ATs are and what their craft, which ones pilot which craft. Well, I don't know if I could help you and any other listeners interested in that. By way back in the day, I did an interview with this guy Ray Kusalandich, who I kind of lost. Think I may have lost a little credibility because he said 2017 we're all gonna ascend into higher consciousness world, and well, he seems to have disappeared off the face of the earth since. But he's done a couple interviews where he's shown through his generation and other generations in the past, the head of his father and some have been contacts and specific craft with specific ETs. He had an artist draw them. So, I mean, I'm not saying he's right, but if someone wants to see a UFO in the sky and they see the UFO and they want to figure out what kind of ET might be in there, you might want to consult some of the interviews that Ray Kusalanich did. Mine was audio only, obviously, so maybe the ones he did with Alfred Weber would be interesting. But hey, that's just for those that want to hypothesize about which aliens are in which craft.
Okay. Let me throw out a little tidbit of information there.
Okay.
There was a gentleman or a group of people, I don't know which, and I believe they're from Russia, and they published a book or a paper on identifying which craft have which people in it. I don't know if we're talking about the same subject, but I never believed it, because the only reason I never believed it is because how would he know? And he would only know if he had interface with humans who happened to meet them. And I just couldn't buy it. That's all.
Okay, that's fair enough. And well, you mentioned excuse me, abductions. You've heard about them. Maybe you've said there a few things about them. I mean, a couple of things about whether an abduction is really an abduction. One can make the argument that you agreed to be abducted before you incarnated into this life, so it's in your soul contract. So it's not really an abduction because it wasn't done against your will, because you had already agreed to it before you born in the in your mother's womb, if you will. So but that's kind of beside the point whether or not it's an abduction or not. What's really the point is what the ETs are doing. And well, there's women out there who said I've given birth to a hybrid because I was impregnated by ETs who abducted me. And well, it makes women feel a lot special knowing that humans are not the only thing that they can carry in that womb of theirs. But sorry, some people may consider that a sexist comment. I didn't mean it for that to be like that. But have you what exactly have the abductees told you? What is going on? You want to pick several abductees that you can tell crazy stories and knock yourself out. We got 2 hours of an interview time, so if you want to tell some of the stories people have told you, knock yourself out. You got the floor.
Okay. I have promised the people that I talked with that I would not tell their specific stories, because some people were really, really messed up by their interaction with ET. So they did not want their stories to be retold. If they heard them, they have the potential of being
well, I never
concerning.
never said you had to mention people's names.
No, I know, but I just feel very bad about doing that. But anyhow, let me tell you some general things that people have told me. One person awoke and they saw 4 or 5 different what they termed a different species in front of them, standing right next to each other. And one of them had a what looked like a pad of paper and was writing something down. And I thought that was interesting. They told me what the groups were. A regular, a short gray, tall gray, and one person mentioned what do you call that? Almost looked like a bug.
Insectoid?
Yeah, yeah. And they said it reminded me of a large 7-foot bug. And I'm listening to the story now. All I could think of was, are you sure that you saw this? I mean, it strains credulity, but all of the stories of the people that have told me that they saw this particular a grouping of people have all told me the same thing, and none of them knew each other. So I don't know where the story's coming from, and I really can't have much negative things to say about it. I only have to believe it. It, 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 it bothered me to think this, but I had to believe it because they were just so honest. But anyhow, that was one of the things. The other thing was someone told me that they came back twice as psychic as when they were when they left. I thought that was interesting. That sent me off in another direction, asking a different set of questions to different people. What I asked in the later events was, prior to your abduction, would you have considered yourself psychic or a seer or somebody who knew things were going to happen before they did, or something along these lines? To a person, everybody said they all thought they were psychic. To a person, before their abduction. After their abduction, they said they thought they were more psychic. That I found very, very interesting. And let's see, what are some other things I can talk about?
Has it been a long time since? Okay, oh, sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
Has it been a long time since these stories have been told to you?
Yeah, it's been about 8 or 9 years, and I'm trying to filter out what I can and can't say here. It's not simple to do. The other thing I was told that I found extremely interesting was that about half of the people said they are able to contact the people that took them just by thinking about them. And the ship will appear. I found that to be very interesting too. Well, whether I believed it or not, I'm still on the edge about that particular point, but they swear that they're able to have direct contact with the people that took them. And all they have to do is think of them and they can summon them. Just thought that was extremely interesting.
Interesting indeed. And another thing that's interesting is mentioning here in the bio, you send me computer and internet software and a broad knowledge of electronics and how it intersects with the paranormal world and UFOs. Well, the work that you've done regarding electronics and electricity. Have you had the opportunity to look at the phenomenon that seems to be gaining traction to UFO, not UFO, YouTube channels that feature this phenomenon prominently are the Thunderbolts Project channel and also the See the Pattern channel, the CSEE, the Pattern channel, which both talk about the electric universe phenomenon and how everything we've heard about stars being powered by nuclear fusion is bullcrap. And also, the one other thing that's very prominent in this is that what mainstream physicists call dark matter is actually Birkeland currents, electric filament currents of sorts through space, and that outer space is really not a vacuum, it's more of a plasma. And you can actually see how it's like a plasma ocean with the gigantic beings that some cameras of the sun have actually shown. They seem to be siphoning energy from the sun. Like outer space is basically an ocean of sorts, because it's not a vacuum like we're led. I mean, I'm throwing out a lot of far out things here, but the most prominent thing I think regarding the electric universe theory is that it would allow for life to exist in the universe far outside of the little Goldilocks zone region that mainstream science, nuclear fusion power stars would have us believing. John Lear, in my interview with him, uh, said that some NASA whistleblower, I think it was a NASA whistleblower, um, explained to him how the planets all have consciousness filtering systems of sorts in their atmospheres, and that the sun does not actually radiate heat. It radiates electromagnetic energy across the Birkeland currents that go through space to the planets, who in turn convert the energy into the weather that it wants to convert it into, and this would allow, he asserts, for life to exist on planets as far beyond Neptune, and the issue of darkness wouldn't be an issue out there either, because well, the planets would have their own light generating systems as well, even if they're not close to any star. It's far out, but I mean, if it's if it's possible. Some people say, well, if the aliens are on all the planets, why aren't we getting radio signals from them? Well, who's to say they're communicating with radio? So this electric universe idea, have you looked into it? Do you have anything to say about it?
Okay. No, I haven't. But I find the description pretty interesting. Um, it would certainly explain some things like how could how could the planet Nibiru have this advanced civilization and then go trillions and trillions and trillions of miles away from the sun and not have any energy? I mean, it would
Right,
explain
right. You
that,
could say, yeah, all the Zachariah Sitchin skeptics in your
Yeah,
face. You don't understand how universe works.
yeah.
So, yeah.
Um, uh, boy, oh boy. Um, I believe um, that the stars are nuclear reactions. I also believe that there's all kinds of energy out there that we'd have no knowledge of, in addition to the sun pouring out huge amounts of magnetic energy. Um, and this magnetic energy reaching all the way out to all the far-flung planets, um, there could very well be a different kind of life out there. And I would not be surprised if there's some type of life on virtually every asteroid, every planet, everything out there. I would not be surprised. It makes perfect sense to me. Um, but I don't know about that whole electric theory. I, I would have to read a little further to comment further.
Well, I can't. I'm not going to blame you for wanting to stick with nuclear fusion. I seem to recall earlier you mentioned that you are hinted that you're a big Stanton Friedman fan, and I'm
Yeah.
sure you missed him. And when he passed away, of course, Stan would also say in his presentations, "I'm a sucker for nuclear fusion." Well, apparently he was a sucker because he was suckered into believing what may be a lie about stars, and he had good intentions and all. And when I did have him on my show, I actually tried to make him feel better about it by saying, if I may say so, Stanton, there's no reason for you or any of your other friends in the nuclear physics area to be upset or just or angry about the electric universe theory being true, because it would allow for more life to exist on more planets and all that. So would you be willing to sacrifice your claim that stars are powered by nuclear fusion if believing in the electric universe theory would allow you to believe that there's more extraterrestrials out there? So I think it's a fair trade-off, I told him, and he hinted that he wasn't really interested in giving up the nuclear fusion idea yet, but the those channels, Thunderbolts Project, which is I think the main guy behind that is Dave Talbot, who wrote the Saturn Myth. Um, and also See the Pattern, another great channel. Yeah, they seem to be getting a lot of popularity. I'll make sure to watch all those interviews and If you want to check it out, by all means, it's definitely worth looking into, because I think it would change everything to if our stars are electric or electromagnetic or maybe even scalar energy. I've had a couple guests on who actually say that scalar energy, which could be like where cold fusion comes from, in a sense, is stars may be comprised to a great extent of that kind of energy, and we're not really familiar with what that is, but of course, you can't be out there in the universe. Well, you can if you can. Some remote viewers can use their consciousness to go out into the universe. Oh yes, and with that being said, let me ask you: have you have spoken to remote viewers or listened to anything interesting that remote viewers may have said? Because there is a field out there of remote viewers, a camp that makes a living out of, in their free time, remote viewing the UFO bases and seeing what they look like. And people like Linda Moulton Howe have, in their presentations, even tried to give those remote viewers credibility by showing what they saw in the UFO bases. Anything to say about remote viewing?
Yeah, that's very interesting. One of the people that I interviewed who said they were abducted, this person said they were abducted for a very long time. Um, and he told me that he can remote view whenever he wants. They taught him how to do that. I just thought that was very interesting. Um, we tried a couple of little experiments, and he was hit or miss with what he tried to explain to me. But I don't doubt that that is something that that can be done, and I would love to see a real experiment done on that, and have the people tested. I'd love to see it.
Oh yeah, of course. How do you verify if a remote viewer is being genuine or just faking? Well, I guess there are body language ways and all
Yeah.
that that you could tell, but
Well,
but it is again.
if you test a person by having them view something that you set up, then you'll know if they're telling the truth or not. But that's the nature of the test. But other than that, if he goes looking on Mars, you're absolutely right. How are you possibly going to be able to tell?
Right, and regarding how to get going to Mars or other systems, regarding your going interstellar, there's a book you wrote called Going Interstellar. Is that why
Yes.
this is underlined here? Yes. So how we go interstellar? Well, there's like if you're watching the Science Channel, there's always going to be someone who tries to spoil the party by saying ETs cannot travel interstellar because the speed of light is the barrier. And that's baloney, because anyone in the field of metaphysics knows that space and time are illusions and everything exists all at once and in one place, and distance is an illusion, and that's the reason that spooky action at a distance, or quantum entanglement, where the protons vibrate in sync no matter how far they're separated, is possible. So one could say that the best way to go interstellar, we somehow have to exploit for lack of a better word, I say, to the fact that space and time are illusions. Exploit the fact that space and time are illusions so we can um, do what the protons in quantum entanglement do, but at a more macroscopic level. So, is there any possibility of that in the near future? Any comments on that idea?
In the near future, I think there's all kinds of experiments going on for quantum entanglement. They have been able to test that at some pretty significant distances and prove that it's possible, which we all know that it is. But as far as us creating some sort of device ship, something to utilize dimensions or whatever, I think we're hundreds of years away from that. And that's one of the reasons why I think they don't want they, meaning our government, doesn't want us interfacing with aliens because we're bound to find those things out a lot sooner than we're capable of handling.
All right, there you said we're not capable of handling it. Well, when you say handle, do you mean with our own hands in a physical sense,
No,
or
no,
from a mental standpoint, not being able to?
mentally, yeah, yeah. We still have some rather large issues as a race.
And you did, of course, touch on that earlier in the interview with learned behavior and such. Um, but boy, where to go from here? Um, so the future of UFO technology and when we can see the ETs, the timeline. One Brad Johnson, who channels a drone, has said 2050 could be the year based on the probability of humanity awakening and consciousness rising and all the other factors out there that one needs to take into account when you try to do the very likely to have egg in your face thing of predicting dates. And more often than not, people do have egg in their face when dates go by and nothing happens. So it's something you don't really want to do. But I mean, a lot of people would hear that and say 2050. That I don't want to wait that long. I feel sorry for Eric von Daniken. He won't be able to see that the ancient astronaut theory was right all along. He's because he's in his 80s right now. So but an old guy who's worked hard. Did an interview with him. Kind of turned out to be a crappy interview because I should have known better than to talk as fast as I do. He never took English in any school, so it's kind of hard for him to understand people like I who talk fast. And I kind of discovered that at a conference when I got to ask him a question, and he needed some guy to help make sense of what I was saying. But okay, I'm digressing here. The point of the question here, timelines, probabilities based on when this is going to, and also how are they going to come out? Appear on the White House lawn as they would want to do in the movies, or is it going to be more like they'll stay in the sky when they show themselves, or and how many are going to show themselves all at once? A lot of questions here, I know. I'm sorry, but how are they going to show, and possible year, if I'm going to ask you to boldly predict?
Oh, interesting question. No one tried to pin me down to a year yet. I've always been able to sidestep it by saying soon. Okay, so as far as a year goes, I'm thinking in the next 2 or 3 years, something is going to happen. Not full disclosure, but something, and that it's going to take a huge quantity of people and turn them around and say, oh my goodness, I didn't know. So coming up 2 or 3 years, something big's going to happen, and possibly even sooner rather than the full 3 years out. One of the things you might be interested in knowing, one of the things that I did when I was researching the UFOs and Earthquakes book, I put a U.S. map up, and throughout this map, I would say that I would put the large event of the major earthquake I was talking about, and several days before and after as a little window of when things were occurring. I did that, and then I superimposed a picture of the UFO sightings that I had over top of that very thing and compared the two. And that's how I came to the conclusion that I didn't think that there was a whole lot going on in the way of UFOs being attracted to earthquakes. However, what I noticed in the short time frame that I did for earthquakes, like 2 days before and 2 days after, and then I did a 5 days before and 5 days after with all of the quakes that occurred and all of the UFO sightings that occurred across the whole United States. So I put those maps together, and I noticed something. I noticed that the in the 2-day event, 2 days before and 2 days after, I was seeing straight lines of UFO sightings being reported across the country. Straight lines. Now, why the heck would there be UFOs seen in straight lines by people within a certain time? I thought that was extremely interesting. So once I saw that, then I compared all of my maps for the time frame of 2 days before and 2 days after, and 5 days before and 5 days after. For the 11-day window, I saw no straight lines. For the 5-day window, I saw straight lines in 9 out of 10 pictures. Now, why in the world would there be straight lines? What could the ETs be looking at going back and forth over the same areas? Now, this was a period of 2001 through 2014, 15 years that I looked at all these events over, and I saw straight lines across the UFOs. Now, why are they going back and forth over these same areas? If the UFOs came here, they have certainly some extreme electronics. They have brilliant computers. They can store anything they want in these computers and call them up. They don't have to keep going back and forth to see if the rivers have changed, because they haven't. If they want a picture of a river, they call it up out of their computer. They don't have to go back and forth to look at physical things, such as where drilling and mining is occurring, or where the Superfund sites are, or whether there's CO2 coming out of the coal-fired power plants and any greater amount, because they're pretty much consistent. They looked at the power plants. They looked at all of the pollution. Now, the pollution, changes from day to day, but over the long term, it really doesn't. It may ramp up slightly or ramp down slightly, but that can all be graphed. There's no need to go back and forth over the same areas. Why are they doing that? And the only thing I could come up with is they are tracking the human population to see if we are advancing, if we are moving higher in our awareness, if we are able to see things psychically more often. They can fly over top of us and recognize people who are psychic, whether there's more of them or not. That's what I noticed in the UFO book, and that's what sent me off into some just far off angle. And it's the only thing that I could come up with. They're looking at us, and they're looking at us changing. And I think we're starting to change, and I think we're starting to change rapidly. And that's why I limited my initial comments to 2 or 3 years, because I think in 2 or 3 years, we're going to be well advanced, not so much mentally, but we'll be aware of things spiritually. And I think that's going to make us interesting to them, and it's going to trigger some type of a revelation. Again, they aren't going to show themselves to us directly, and I do think that the 2050 range is probably reasonable, where they are out and out showing themselves, this is what we have and this is what we do, period, thing. But as we approach that period of time, we're going to hit various what's the word I'm looking for? Um, uh, Various points in our growth that it's going to make it worthwhile for them to give us a little bit more information. And that's why I think that, first of all, that's going to happen in the next 2 or 3 years. And then you asked me a whole bunch of other questions concerning how is that going to happen and whatever else. I think initially we are going to be told information through our government representatives from the ETs. They're going to allow certain information in, and that's going to be our landmarks along the way. But when there's the final declaration, that's going to be a massive show. And here we are, guys. We'll fill your skies with our ships and let you know that we could have taken you out a long time ago, but we're really here for you.
Interesting idea there that they're watching over us. Well, I believe that for a while. Different agendas, though. We can go into that later. But you did mention in your Going Interstellar how can find their ways here from light years away. It says in the description. Well, it's not just the ultimate way that I pointed out, explaining the fact that space and time are illusions. There are other ways to go about it to circumvent the light barrier that really shouldn't be a barrier. What are those other ways? Can you explain the science behind them?
Ooh, okay. I think that they may be able to utilize power from the sun and charging up their ships and being able to do some really amazing things, such as open wormholes. A wormhole's also known as a Einstein-Rosen a bridge, and in order to do that, we or they would need a tremendous power source, enough power that eclipses what we've created on Earth to date. So that's why these huge ships, I believe, can harness power out of the sun, out of other stars, and open up portals to who knows where. That's an Einstein-Rosen bridge, and basically a wormhole. They may be able to pop into a different dimension and utilize those dimensions. And as an aside from that, I believe that they have been, some of the groups have been doing that. And when they did that, that created all kinds of issues on our planet with other dimensions for us. I think it actually created open portals to ghosts, open portals to other things. Some people talk about Bigfoot being from a different dimension. I don't know that for certain, obviously, but if they are, one of the things that they have created through the utilization of different dimensions is they've created wakes that have upset the dimensional barriers and caused us to have all kinds of interactions. Let's see. They may also be able to create enough energy to be able to put a large wake of energy in front of them, remove all the energy behind them, and compress the distance, and they can travel great distances that way, sort of like a warp field, same kind of thing. But uh, that that is probably the first thing that'll happen with us. They're actually doing some research in that direction. Mexican physicist Alcubierre is actually doing some research into that, and I most likely believe that that's the very first thing that's going to happen with us. We are also going to learn how to store power, and that's going to be a big deal. And we're going to be able to extract power from pulsars and black holes, and perhaps even go around a planet that has a huge magnetic field and suck the magnetic field out. Harvest neutrinos from stars. May be able to grab energy from the dark matter, whatever that happens to be, whether it's electrical or unknown, and we may be able to take power right out of the corona of the sun. I believe they've probably seen a few ships along the way do that, and I don't know if they're actually pictures or some made-up picture, but I wouldn't doubt that technology is possible for ETs. But there's all kinds of ways that we're going to be seeing these things, and we're going to be learning about them in leaps and bounds in the next 30 years.
All right, 30 years. I hope we don't have to wait that long. But I mean, if the ETs are watching over us and monitoring us and want to maybe they're grading us, giving the reports back to their home planets of sorts. How are the humans doing and whatnot? I mean, you mentioned that earlier. I kind of wanted to touch on it again because many people hear about that happening and raises a lot of questions regarding what reason would they have to watch us if it's not because they just are doing scientific research like a human watching animals on the Discovery Channel or something. It's their way of just learning about science from a planetary standpoint, or are they do they have some future plan involved? And I mean, there's also when it comes to asking guardian angels and spirit guides, which some people also think of as alien in nature. It's like asking you shall receive in more cases than you could possibly believe. It's but then again, it's been said by a lot of people that the reason ETs don't just come and save us is because they are following some law of the universe that some entity created that they follow, saying that they have to keep a laissez-faire, hands-off policy to allow us humans to evolve in different disciplines and fields. So, which ultimately, which idea makes the most sense to you regarding why the ETs are trying to watch over us and report our progress and possibly even help us either by their own discretion and will, or if we were to ask them?
Okay. That was a wonderfully complex question. And let me throw out my ideas about this anyhow. I think what got their attention, they were aware of us and knew that we were going to eventually get there, but we really had them pushing the panic button and scrambling around when we lit off multiple nuclear weapons during the Second World War. I think that really got their attention, and they know that we are eventually going to be part of them out in space, and if we're warlike enough to do that to ourselves, then what are we going to do to everybody else? So they had to come look. And I think that's what got their attention initially. And that's why so many different groups of them showed up, because they were worried what we're capable of doing. I think they realize now that we sort of got things in hand, but they are they're still watching, as far as the nuclear stuff goes, as far as perhaps taking our wars into space and things like that. They're watching very closely. They certainly don't want us to do that. Well, that was the main point I wanted. You asked a whole bunch of other questions, but why don't you refresh me a little bit, Andrew?
I kind of forgot what I asked besides the ETs and their agenda for watching over us and reporting us, whether it was a scientific research thing or an idea to possibly help us or keep us from destroying ourselves, or yeah, I guess it was just one question,
Yeah.
but I complicated it in such a way. So
It was a little bit of
so
everything, actually. Yeah.
yes. All right, and I'm sure in your volumes, volume 1, volume 2, and volume 3 of They Are Here, you try to include a little bit of everything, and I know that you must have added the volumes on because you knew from after finishing the previous volume that you hadn't included everything, a little bit of everything. So exactly what is the They Are Here, those book series, what is the significance of you writing 3 different volumes, and what is the main things that you progress on as you went from volume 1 to volume 3 regarding research regarding they are here, they being here, the ETs being here?
Um, in Let me just describe how I went through the progression. In volume 1, I took the data from the National UFO Reporting Center, and I wanted to look at the a side by side graph of what was being seen in the sky and when it was being seen, and if there were peaks of when these particular things were being seen, if they were early, if they were more recent, or if there was a peak in the middle and then it dropped off. I was curious about everything. So what I did was I looked at the entire range of the things that were reported, and there was 50 different items, 50 different things seen in the sky by people who were reporting them all across the United States. And I knew that I couldn't put a side-by-side graph with a time crawl for every single one of these things. So what I did was I lumped them into certain categories. The categories were a cigar shape, a disc shape, fireball, lights in the sky, varying shapes, meaning meaning squares and rectangles and odd shapes, then spheres and triangles. Now I figured if I got 7 different things that I could look across, even though I was lumping them together, if one stood out and gave me heartburn, with an inability to explain why there was a spike in a particular place, I could look, I could get that grouping and look closer within that one grouping. But what I wanted to do was one graph from 1945, whenever the first reporting thing was, all the way up through 2015, 2016. And I did that and put the same amount in each group so that I could compare one with the other. I couldn't very well compare a 2016 grouping of 400 sightings with a 1945 grouping of 6. See if you see what I mean. So I had to put the same amount in each grouping so I can compare apples and oranges. And I made a map for, a graph for every single state in the union. And I was looking for anomalies, looking for things that were sticking out. What was changing? Why was it changing? Where were the peaks in sightings? Were the peaks and sightings in particular states? Were they in particular time frames? So all those graphs I included in every single one of my books. So to grab out volume 1, like I started mentioning, volume 1 had just the East Coast. I had the East Coast and maybe a couple of states in from the East Coast, perhaps over like Kentucky and Tennessee. I included that in the East. And then in the central U.S. was the states that were to the west of Kentucky, all the way out to, let's say, Colorado. And then Colorado I included in the western U.S. But I did that because I was going to create a book that was absolutely incredibly large, and I was going to be unable to sell because the thing was going to be so damn heavy nobody would want to buy it. So breaking them out and putting the same kind of graphs in every single state and the same kind of sighting groupings, when the sightings were seen, what year from 1945 all the way to the present, to see if there's any spikes there. And there were, by the way. And some of the things that I saw surprised me. Say, for instance, along the East Coast, I saw an incredible amount of sightings of what's termed fireballs. These were balls of fire in the sky that would move slowly, sort of like an airplane. It wouldn't move any faster than that. Just going across the sky, a ball of fire. If you can imagine that, a ball of fire, on fire, just moving across the sky. Very interesting sighting. I saw them myself, and I compared those to the things that perhaps were seen early on and were not seen more recently, such as the flying saucers, the discs that I called them. In the early years, everybody was seeing discs. In the more recent, they weren't seeing that many discs anymore, not that many. So where did they go? Did the people flying them they decided to give up on them? Did they come up with a different iteration of craft? Do they have a different cloaking mechanism? There's all these questions. Well, one of the things that I came across is that in one of the states there was a sighting of someone who saw a flying saucer, and this flying saucer was going across the sky and stopped, and then it morphed into a sphere, from a flying saucer to a sphere. And then the sphere looked like it was on fire, and then that continued on across the sky. So did the discs go away because they became fireballs? Or did the discs go away because they became spheres, and the spheres became fireballs? I had to do a lot of research to come up with what was what. But I did notice that in quite a few of the states that I had done, especially the states that were along the water, along the coast, along the East Coast, along the West Coast, and along the Great Lakes. There were the greatest amount of sightings of fireballs, and fireballs early on were seen in very small quantities, and more recently were seen in very large quantities, and the discs were exactly the opposite. Early on, there were a lot of discs seen. Now, there's very few discs seen. I believe that one became the other, and that's why the people aren't seeing discs anymore. So these are one of the things that I came across with the graphs that I did. Also, in each particular state, I looked at things such as whether there were oil spills that maybe the discs were coming in for, chemical spills, Superfund sites, whether there's excessive pollution in that particular area, whether there was Native American information there, whether there's like burial mounds or things like that, and what kind of power plants they had. If they had a lot of nuclear power plants, then was I going to see more crafts above them, or were I going to see equal amounts over the coal-fired power plants? So I looked at each of those particular items in every state, and in addition to that, I got some of the best sighting reports that I could find from the National UFO Reporting Center and included them with each particular state. So I was giving you like all this hard data and then some fun things to read with the UFO reports, and that I tried to do that so it wasn't just a book of hard data, because it would put people to sleep. That wouldn't be what I want. So I want to give them something really interesting to expect when they turn the page to go to the next state. But some of the things I came across, especially in Volume 2, which was the Central U.S., is the Native Americans. I had opportunity to interview a young girl who was raised Native American and was told stories as she was growing up that the ways of the Europeans was not the ways of the natives, and that they are beholden to the land and not to technology. And she also told me about some prophecies that she was told. One of them was the Seven Fires prophecy, which indicated that we're getting to the point where the white people are going to have to choose between their excessive technology or the ways of the Native Americans, or else face a massive reset of the planet. And I think we all know what massive reset means. And I was able to interview her on several different occasions and asked her specific questions about this. She was Chippewa, by the way, and she concurred that that's what they were taught. And she also said to me that when the day of reckoning comes, that the natives are going to be taken up in the ships and whisked away to someplace safe, and then the earth will undergo a massive reset if we don't choose right. The earth's going to undergo a massive reset, and then they'll be brought back to the planet the way it used to be, and they're going to start all over again. But I thought that was interesting. As soon as I uncovered that, I started doing some research about the people that gave the Native Americans that prophecy. These people were, in the native words, they were half man, half fish. And I noticed that in one of the other places that I was researching, I think it was the Sumerians, that there were fish-like men who came out of the water and taught them. Well, if they're teaching the people in North America, and they're teaching the people in Samaria, where else are they teaching them? Well, I also found references to the Hindu and the Dogon tribe in Africa. So all across the world at the same time, after the last massive reset, the last great flood, the people came out of the water and taught us things like how to create a civilization, how to survive, and fish and hunt and things like that. Also came across some of the other things that were being told in the stories from the Sumerians and the Hindus, is that these people were also described as iridescent, that they were called the shining ones, that in all of the different areas they all refer to 7 gods or 7 tribes or 7 sages or the 7 stars of the Big Dipper. There's always the 7 number popping up here, and there's great significance. And this extended to the fact that they talked about egg-shaped things. The Native Americans talked about the earth, their land, and not the earth, their land being egg-like, and it was turned by the visitors out of the water. It was turned into the actual land that they were living on. It was very egg-like. The Hindus talked about a cosmic egg of gold, and the Dogon tribe also talked about a cosmic egg. But I came across all these things after finding the one prophecy about the Native Americans that seemed to apply to the upper Midwest, where this particular Native American tribe settled. Well, from there, I went into volume 3, looking at the same kind of things, wondering what I was going to come across. And I noticed the same kind of stories that came out of Utah and the Native American civilizations there, referencing the ant people and the fact that they were taken underground to save them. It's been a really interesting journey for me. When I first started looking at just UFO sightings in the sky and manipulating databases, then it popped into Native Americans and where UFO sightings happen to be. This has been a real learning experience for me, and I am so happy that I did this, Andrew. This was very, very interesting. Very interesting time of my life, believe me.
Yes, very interesting stuff you had to say there about some stories that more kind of an oxymoron, down-to-earth UFO people would be talking about all these different species of ETs and all that. And I mean, that thing that the Chippewa Native American, I think you said it was,
Yes.
about humanity's got to care for its planet and stop getting all technological and all, or you're going to have some sort of a reset or something. I mean, a couple of things about that great reset we've been hearing. Some people have said that's in the end, the best case scenario for this would be a currency reset in which we go to a gold-backed currency, which would allow for less corruption than this fiat-based debt system that's enslaved everybody that's not filthy, filthy rich. And but that's wishful thinking in many ways. This other people have more taken a conspiratorial approach behind what this reset is. But anyhow, I'm not really so much concerned about the reset as I am the well the reset of humanity with how we can get along with nature and technology. I mean, David Icke said that 2030, the year that humanity will merge with machines. He always talks about negative stuff, but he has hinted that he wants to think positive things are in store for humanity. He's hinted that the energies of Earth keep increasing at a positive level. And it's interesting how 2030, 1 year after the 2029 year that the Terminator was sent back to kill Sarah Connor in the Terminator movies, those movies, of course, are on a negative timeline. If we're on a positive timeline, then you can expect us to live in harmony with our machines in the same way that the Star Wars universe lives in harmony with droids. Of course, we've seen in the Star Wars movies, like the great cities in Star Wars are so technologically advanced, but yet the people in the Star Wars universe, they have the ability to get one with nature. In Return of the Jedi, that whole experience they had with the Ewoks, they were getting one with nature in there, and
Yeah.
so were the droids. The Ewoks thought C-3PO was a god for a little while, but anyhow, my point is, how can humans merge with machines and be one with nature when lots of people don't really think nature and machines mix? They always say, turn off your computer, turn off your TV, turn off your cell phone, and go out in nature. Well, what if you had a pet robot? Wouldn't you want, and you want to bring your pet robot out to nature with you? Are they going to say shut off your pet robot because you're in nature? I don't know. Some people may, if they're true nature nuts that want to stay away from machines. So, any comments on humans merging with machines and nature in a way that allows for harmony and not a way that allows for things to not mix well?
Okay. I believe that what they were talking about in their prophecy was that um, um, we are we are polluting ourselves into non-existence. And I think that's what they were referring to, and not so much that we were utilizing technology for the good. We were utilizing technology, spitting out crap into the air, and then people weren't better off for it. I think that's all that they were referring to there. So I really think that it's possible for man to merge with a machine and not spew lots of crap up into the sky that would harm them or that would harm the planet. We just have to figure out how to do it first.
Absolutely, have to figure it
Yeah,
out, and
I hope we can.
what I hope we can too. Um, well, we've almost reached the 2 hour mark, so I think I may, at this point, bring this interview to a close. But I'd like you now to get out anything you'd like to get out. Your contact info, you seem like more of a Facebook guy. I think you say you don't really have any official website or anything like that. You rather just keep it simple and post everything to Facebook. Hey, if that's what floats your boat, go right ahead. But what do you, any last words for humanity's sake of learning wisdom and knowledge, and then your contact info and anything else?
Okay. Well, my contact info, my email address is TCONWEL2 at nycap.rr.com. That's tconwell2 at nycap.rr.com. And you can also get me on Facebook. I love Facebook. I just feel comfortable with it. My Facebook address is tom.conwell.3, but on Facebook, it's spelled Conwell. My email address has only one L in it. It's tom.conwell.3, and you can also all of my postings on Facebook are public. So even if you're not friends, you can come in and read whatever I have to post. Just one note of caution: I do not accept talk about vaccines, yes or no, or talk about politics, Republican or Democrat. I just don't like them. If you have an opinion, great. Put it on your own page, not on mine. That's my only restriction. And I'll talk about absolutely anything you want to talk about. Ask me anything under the sun. I believe that that the Earth as a population is ascending. I believe that we're learning the spiritual, and in the very near future, that is going to come to, at least a portion of that is going to come to a fruition, and we're going to have a revelation of sorts. And that's going to be, I'm hoping, in the next 3 years, by 2021, 2, 3, maybe 2020, end of 2023. So that's basically it. Feel free to contact me. I'll answer anything you want.
Thank you very much. And with that being said, I will make sure that I upload this to YouTube. Of course, it's going to be unlisted because Patreon subscribers, if they want to listen to it right away, will have to pay a fee. That's the way it's going to be with this show from now on. Time to profit off the work. But it will be available to everybody in about 2 to 3 weeks for everybody to get this great info. So thank you very much, Tom Conwell. Good luck. Keep up the good work, and Happy New Year, and best of luck to you.
Thank you, Andrew.
Here.